Hello everyone, welcome back to another Commander review for Magic the Gathering. Today, we're going to do something a little different. We're not talking about any more Champions of Kamigawa today, in this video. Thanks to some popular demand by you guys, I really appreciate getting all your comments and feedback. And thanks to a recent unbanning for the Commander format, we're going to do a little special tribute to Braids Cabal Minion, who just got unbanned. So, a couple things about this video that is going to be different from the original videos that you usually watch in this series. I will not be going over all the details of this commander. I will not be going over all the rules associated with this commander because in my previous Braids video, I went over all of those details in that video, back when Braids was still banned. So, that is the first of all. You see the card here? This is what the card does. I'm not going to go into depth about what the card does again. If you want to check that out, go find my original Braids Commander review video, and I do more in depth there. The other thing to note with this video is a lot of people have requested like deck lists, which is really awesome. I'm glad you guys are liking the ideas that I'm proposing and you want to get more detailed information. However, because I try and do 3 deck ideas for each of these commanders, that's 300 cards essentially to like figure out and put into a deck essentially. So I do not have the time to do that because I'm too busy making these videos, making these presentations, and I've got other projects I'm working on too. So unfortunately, I don't know if I'm going to be able to make like full detailed deck lists. And as far as this video is concerned, because I have this opportunity to talk about Braids again, there are other deck ideas that I want to talk about. So this video is not going to be a detailed deck list. Rather, it is going to be similar to the original Braids Commander review, where I'm going to talk about new deck ideas that you guys can build around that I did not get to talk about in the previous video. So, moving right on into it. This slide right here, as titled the previous deck ideas, in my original Braids video, a lot of the deck ideas I talked about focused on the edict effect of Braids. You want to have you sacrifice things, you want to have your opponents sacrifice things, and you want to take advantage of that with some slight variations. But a lot of those videos or a lot of those deck ideas were pretty vague, and you can kind of go any direction you wanted, so it didn't really point you in any direction. So my hope is that in this video, I'm going to give you more specific deck ideas that you can hone in on to really make your Braids deck unique to your playgroup. So, with that said, here are 3 new deck ideas that I did not mention in my previous video that you guys could build around. As always, remember to have strong synergistic cards in your deck. One of the strong ones that's still popular right now, from what I've seen lately, is Lolth Spider Queen. It's a Planeswalker, so you never have to worry about sacrificing it to Braids effect, and it can make tokens which you want to sacrifice, and it benefits from when your creatures die due to the sacrificing of Braids effect. So, really great synergistic card. And it's not something that is going to get sacrificed by Braids. So, first fun deck idea that I didn't talk about earlier was the modular mechanic. Now, modular is primarily an artifact-based archetype, so this is going to be a mono-black artifact deck, but it's all about the modular mechanic. Modular is for the Arcbound Condor, it has modular 3. This creature enters the battlefield with 3 +1/+1 counters on it. When it dies, you may put its +1/+1 counters on target artifact creature. So, essentially, when you're playing your modular artifacts, they're going to get counters on them, When they die, you're going to move those counters onto other modular creatures or just other generic artifact creatures, and really make this giant army that you can swing to try and go wide, but you're also really heavily focused on going tall for your damage. And this is a very fun archetype. It's cool to see that you could do a mono black modular deck, because mono black artifact aristocrats is already kind of a thing thanks to the Warhammer 40k crossover, the Universes Beyond that we did a while back with Magic the Gathering. So it's just cool that this archetype can be built around with a very specific and easy mechanic that you can really look up and look into to build this deck in a very specific way. And the other thing that I think is really fun about this is, like, you could play a card like the Darksteel Mirror, which is like a 0/1, but it has indestructible. So as you are playing your modular creatures and they're dying due to Braids' ability, you could put those counters on your Darksteel Mirror that has indestructible, so you have this giant monster that will be very difficult for your opponents to get rid of. And in black, there's a lot of support for aristocrats, and there's a lot of support for reanimation effects, so you can bring those modular creatures back to put even more +1/+1 counters in play. The other direction you could take this build is a mono black artifacts modular build, but focusing on the +1/+1 counters aspect and manipulating those counters to do fun shenanigans that way. So this is a cool build, and it's very specific and honed in, so it should be fairly easy to build around as well. Another deck idea that would be fun to build around is, of course, Super Friends or Planeswalkers. Braids does not cause you to sacrifice Planeswalkers with its ability, so as long as you have Planeswalkers that can put creatures into play as part of their abilities, then you can fulfill the needs of not only Braids, but you can fill the board with creatures that you can use to defend your Planeswalkers against your opponents. And of course, like all the Super Friends deck ideas, especially when you're doing something that's monocolored, you could do the flavorful route as well and build around a specific character. So for black, obviously Liliana is probably the most iconic black Planeswalker that you could build around, and it has a lot of support for it. And then lastly, I was trying to think, what's another permanent type that is not affected by Braids that you could try and build around while still maintaining the ability to fulfill Braids' needs by having creatures to sacrifice, so you don't have to sacrifice Braids. And so I started thinking of enchantments, and I started trying to think of enchantments that like put creatures into play and stuff like that. So I was kind of maybe thinking maybe you could do like enchantments with a zombie theme, because there's a lot of zombie anthem enchantments in Magic's history, and so on and so forth. And then I got this crazy idea of, why don't we benefit ourselves by cursing our opponents with crazy enchantments? And there are several black curses that can produce zombies under your control, so they fulfill the need to avoid being sacrificed, and they can supply you with bodies that you can offer up to Braids' ability. So the final deck idea would be a mono black curse deck, and if you really wanted to, you could throw in some other fun shenanigans, or maybe go a different route instead of curses, but you still wanted to do enchantment builds. If you wanted to do an enchantment like a Monarch deck, where you are essentially just playing the Monarch, but you have mostly enchantment based things in your deck, so you don't have to sacrifice them. But I think curses in the specific build around of this commander would be a lot of fun. Play curses that put creatures into play. Things like Bitterheart is fantastic in this deck, because you play your Bitterheart, you have to sacrifice it to your commander, to Braids. It will trigger, getting you a curse. Then you can put that curse on a player. Hopefully it's a curse that puts bodies into play, so then you can sacrifice them to Braids again. Then you use reanimation effects to put the Bitter Heart Witch back into play, and you repeat the cycle, and you just flood the board with curses, and you win by cursing all of your opponents at play. And I think that would be a lot of fun to try and build around. And again, because you are focusing on curses specifically, this should be another very easy, simple to look up and build deck for you to work with. And it'll be very interesting for the table. And that is going to do it for Braids. Still very popular commander, even even before the banning, and now even after the banning. I'm sure it's going to go up even more in popularity and other deck ideas to build around it. I hope that you guys can take the opportunity to build around these deck ideas and let me know what you guys think in the comments below. Obviously, having an edict in the command zone is going to be pretty powerful, so Braids will probably have somewhat of a target on their back. So be prepared for that, build around it. But yeah, I'm really excited that Braids is unbanned. I personally don't really care for the ban list anyway, so I already was playing with Braids to begin with. But I know the ban list is there to help keep the game healthy for everyone and to keep the game enjoyable for everyone. So having Braids unbanned is really cool. I'd love to hear your guys' comments about what you're going to build around with Braids. If you are going to build around any of the deck ideas that I talked about in this video or the previous video. And again, if you want to get more in detail about any rules for Braids or specifically how Braids works in the game, go check out that previous video because I do a more in-depth dive of her rules in that video, as well as 3 other deck tech ideas in that video as well. So thank you guys so much for watching. Thank you guys so much for your support. Thank you for all of your feedback and comments. I probably would not have made this video if you guys didn't ask for it as much as you did, so thank you for that. I'd love to do it again if we get another unbanning in the future. So thank you for all your support, and as always, I'll see you in the next one. Bye!